Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Interlinked Podcast. Today, we have some new faces that are going to be joining us today. So, really excited to welcome first Mr. Luke, the founder and CEO of Pixels Online. How you doing, my man?
Yeah, doing good. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited you're a new citizen, new part of the Citadel here in Neo Tokyo. So excited to dive into everything you're doing, jump into that. And then we also have Mr. Hogsheadcheese, an elite citizen and attorney and just a overall general badass. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Welcome, Luke. Grand Rising, everybody. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And then of course we always have the main man, the legend, Mr. Cryptotheus. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Stoked to be here. Stoked to be joined with some new citizens. Excited to talk about our topics today. Still got a little bit of dopamine left in the system after, crazy week, crazy day. Tried to at least go for a walk before this and sort of reset. We got a lot of cool stuff cooking. So excited to get into it.
Love it. Cool, guys. Well, before we get into our topics, Luke, I would love to just kind of hear a little bit about your story. You recently joined the Citadel, so again, welcome. But yeah, I would love to just kind of get your 411 on everything that's going on with you and your story and how you got here, what's going on with Pixels Online and all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. So I'll start with Pixels really quick just to give a high level overview of what it is, and I can dive into myself as well too. So if you haven't checked out Pixels, what Pixels is it's a Web3 game. It's actually one of the largest right now as well too, especially when we're talking about like real player count, which is super exciting. This really just happened over the last 2 weeks as we migrated to the Ronin chain. We've been working really, really closely with the Ronin team, so it's just been an exciting couple of weeks. I'm the founder of Pixels. I wear the CTO and the CEO hat at Pixels. I'm very, very hands-on with the team right now. Some background on me is I started coding when I was 12 years old. I actually got into crypto when I was like 13 or 14 too. I was mining Bitcoin in my parents' basement. I just thought it was the coolest thing that I could leave my computer on and like potentially make money from it. So yeah, I've been in the space for a bit there. I studied computer science and economics in university. And it's funny because I kind of made a turn on crypto when I was studying economics. All my econ professors absolutely hated it. We would talk about it a good amount because my focus was on money and banking when I was studying economics. But yeah, I kind of became like a crypto disbeliever for a little bit. But then, yeah, funny enough, I got into the startup space. I was building in a different space than crypto for a little bit, or than Web3. What I had started building in like 2020 was this virtual spaces platform. We were competing with this product called Gather.town. But yeah, we had basically shipped this really unique piece of tech. It was called spatial video chat. And we were one of the first to market with it. We were using this technology to host virtual events for enterprise companies. So companies like Apple, Uber, Rippling, and Twitter were using our previous product to host, happy hours, socials, mixers, conferences for all of their employees. But at the end of like 2021, we were coming into some issues with that product. Basically, we were getting some revenue through this product, but we found out that people actually didn't really like meeting online virtually in the long run as COVID started to die down. And we never found any recurring use cases through this product as well too. One of the big issues with the previous product was that people would use these spaces for events and then they would never use them again, or like maybe once every 3 months. The best use case scenario, funny enough, that we found was there was this NFT community that was using our product once a week for about an hour as a meetup space. And at first, I completely wrote them off. I just thought it was a silly little thing that they were doing. But then they offered us money to put their NFTs into the game, or into this technology that we had. And I suddenly became much more interested in listening to them. And we started digging into that whole use case a lot more. And we found all of these NFT communities out there that basically had really strong communities, but nothing to do inside of their communities. So we were really early on the interoperability train, where we started to integrate a bunch of NFTs into our technology. And then we also started to experiment and tinker with game elements inside of the technology at the same time. And the first day that we added a game mechanic into the game, somebody basically stayed up all night playing the game. And that was use that we hadn't seen ever before. And it just kind of gave like the conviction to move into gaming as well. So yeah, that was back in November 2021 when we pivoted into Web3. And we've been really hard and strong on it since. And the problem set's just been so interesting and fun for me. That econ background I have, we basically get to design an economy ground up. I get to like play with incentive design, growth design all day. And it's just been an absolute playground and a blast. So yeah, we've been building in public ever since then. We do updates almost every week. Honestly, it's been more than once a week lately that are going straight to production live to our users. We have a different philosophy and mindset than like traditional game studios because we kind of are gaming outsiders in a way, even though, we have gaming talent on side of the team. We still have this thesis and belief that Web3 gaming is still this wild west where nobody really knows it's going to work. So we still have that scrappy startup mindset that we had before we moved into Web3, where we like to build really quickly. We like to iterate a ton. We like to try things out. We like to break things often. And yeah, those two concepts combined have kind of built an interesting path for us in Web3, where, we build with our community. We, try things out really quickly. And we're just trying to find product market fit at the end of the day in Web3 gaming. We think this is the route for us to do it. So yeah, some recent wins on our team, but there's still so many things to figure out in Web3 gaming. Really fascinating space. So many issues to solve still, but it's been a lot of fun.
It's super cool approaching like the game economy with a true economics background. Definitely excited to hear a little bit of what your thoughts are around that, and if there's going to be a central bank in that universe, or if it's going to be, more of like an independent system or decentralized system. I think that's a very cool aspect. I've got a passion for economics and didn't major in it, but studied quite a bit about it in undergrad and grad school.
Nice. Yeah, there's so much to dig into there. If we want to dig into that now, I'm more than happy to. I mean, I kind of like to view the role of a game developer to kind of be like a central bank early on. Like for us, when it comes to Web3 game economies, I think that's the really interesting value add, where it's like we can really grow games in interesting ways that you can't do in Web2 gaming. And to do that, we have to be smart with token distribution and economics, basically. We also have to set up the correct incentive structures to do so. One really interesting tidbit about Pixels is we've only spent maybe $10,000 lifetime to date on any form of marketing. And all of our growth has been through incentive structures and basically creating good ways to help enable people to help us grow our game, basically. So yeah, I think you kind of want a centralized entity in the beginning to make decisions like that because it allows us to move a lot quicker. We used to be way further on the decentralization mindset, but it just moves way slower. I love the idea of slow decentralization or gradual decentralization, but I think our players in our community kind of want us to be the ones in charge because at the end of the day in the Web3 game, you still have to build trust with the game developer that we're going to be able to update the game, do live ops, all of that. So there really isn't a concept of decentralization at the very beginning anyways. Even with fully on-chain games, like you still want players to be, you still want the game developer to be updating the game. You still want to be managing some things, right? You still want to make the game. Like maybe really simple games that are fully on-chain can work at the beginning. Like if you put on-chain checkers, like sure, maybe that is an interesting use case where there's very clear rules. But when you start to develop more complex systems, you have to tweak and iterate them. And you kind of need centralization like that early on.
Okay, I'm so passionate about this idea, right? Like one of the things that I think is so underrated within the Web3 space is the ability to move fast and to not be held down by bureaucracy, right? Like in the decentralization era, everybody likes to think that they suddenly become experts and that everybody's opinion should be added to everything that everybody is always doing always. That is just not the case. Like there are people who have skill sets in certain things, and those people with skill sets in certain things, those people's like where they're the best, they should be prioritized. And that is where that should go. Like, for example, Hogshead, you're an attorney. Like your opinion should be taken way over mine when it comes to anything legal. Like, I don't know. I'm not an attorney, like my dad was an attorney, but that doesn't mean I know anything about the law. You know what I mean? So like in decentralization, one thing that I think could solve this, and hopefully somebody can build this out because I don't know how exactly this will work, but like a believability weighted index as far like within the decentralized space. So like, what are your credentials? What would justify you being able to have a valid opinion on this? Not a valid opinion, but like weighting it based on how believable people should be based on their past, right? Like that would be like the difference between Warren Buffett giving financial advice versus like a third grader who just made their first dollar selling lemonade. You know what I mean? It's like there should be ways to like measure that, and there should absolutely be some sort of trackable like our decentralized ID or something that's like, for example, Luke, like you've now built a project and that project is 100,000 people following it on Twitter. Like you're more believable about how to grow or bootstrap a Twitter account over 100K than somebody who hasn't done that. You know what I mean? So it's like this is something I think is critical for the decentralized world to move forward with. I don't know how to solve it, but somebody should figure that out because it's really important.
Yeah, there's so many billion-dollar companies sitting in like the depths here in Web3. Things like that, things like bot detection prevention. That's a huge, that might be like $1 trillion opportunity, honestly. Like WorldCoin's trying to solve that one. But yeah, there's so many things that we're running into as we're building the game where, you know, we are identifying these issues and we can't solve all of them. So we have to focus on the ones that are the most high impact on us. Our approach to this problem in particular around like basically decentralized decision making in terms of how we build and operate has been to be community led. Like we put a huge emphasis inside of our own community, and we've done a really good job, especially in the early days of building Pixels, around community creation. One of the first things that we did, which was actually very counter to the rest of the space when we were building early, back in like December 2021, still bull market, was we set strong expectations that we don't talk about price. We don't talk about floor price or anything like that inside of our Discord. What we wanted to do is we wanted to curate a community of people who actually liked what we were building and who wanted to give like honest feedback, and we're here for the long term, which set great expectations early on. And we still kind of follow that ethos. But yeah, it's allowed us to basically build with our community through that community curation, where I want to listen to every single person in our community. Like it's extremely valuable feedback. Like we want to be building with them. We want to take their thoughts and pieces in mind, and we completely welcome that. I don't really view anything when it comes to criticism as FUD. I actually don't even like that word. I think FUD is just people that actually care, that want to help see the product get better. So that's kind of our mindset around that too. And we set really clear expectations and transparency around everything that we do as well. So a lot of it has been us kind of relaying back to the community, like why we're making certain decisions, why we do the things we do, and just being with them very often. We do AMAs every single week, and we've done them for 2 years straight, where we literally answer every single question our community has on a live stream with them. I'm in the Discord all of the time. I used to be the #1 messenger in our Discord for like the first year and a half even. Now we have, you know, way more people. I can't always like put as much time into it, but it's like we are there listening to them all the time. So, you know, we take their feedback, we take their viewpoints, and then we're the ones that go and execute it. Our tagline kind of has been, it's our community's game. We're just the ones building it for them.
I love that. Hogshead, maybe you could weigh in on this.
Yeah, so a couple things that I noticed, you know, throughout Web3 is we talked about you being able to pivot and being able to change sort of quickly, and I think that is, you know, what Ben had mentioned is like one of the most important aspects of this. So, you know, I bring up Neo Tokyo, and we had bytes, and it was obvious that the original bytes contract and how it was creating the number of bytes was just not going to work. Pivoted to bytes 2.0, and now we see sort of the coming to fruition now, where you stake your citizen, and it's going to slowly bring up the economics to where it should have been in the first place. And I think it's just an amazing project. Now, thinking back to Axie in the beginning, where you had the SLP token. The SLP token was just creating so much, and you bring up bots. There was a lot of bots playing Axie at the time. The bots were essentially inflating the token, and I think that had they sort of fixed that and cut that off faster, change the economics a little bit, I think Axie would be in a much better place now, and I think it would honestly be more playable. Gameplay aside, I'm just talking about the economics of it. And I think the way that you're talking about bringing up the community, it's their game, you're building it. You need an act of centralization. You need someone to be able to implement those things. Like you said, if it was truly decentralized, who's going to do that? And it just doesn't work out. But the fact that you're bringing everybody in, I think, is just an awesome idea, and the way that you're implementing it, I think, is great, and it's gonna do really well in the long run. I'm really excited to have you in Neo Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a key point too. It's like the product that we have out right now, it's not perfect at all. Like there are issues with it. There are things that we need to fix. There's holes and like things that we need to plug. You know, we're having similar issues that early Axie did too. What's great is we get mentorship from, you know, the Ronin team and the Axie team right now, where, you know, basically I have a strong belief in the Ronin ecosystem. I have so much respect for the Axie team, Sky Mavis. They're the only team in Web3 gaming that's actually scaled and gone through any of the issues that Web3 games have. They've been giving us so much valuable mentorship around all of this side of things. where it's like, we'll bring them like some issues that we're dealing with. They've already solved these. They've already had like several different things they've tried. So we can pull that in from them as well too. But then also it's been creating the expectation with our users, which has been not the easiest at first, but now there's this level of trust between us and our users where we've been doing this long enough where we have a track record. We've been building and releasing updates really quickly, where they also understand that there's issues in the game and they have trust in us that we're going to be able to solve them, or at least that's like the fun part of being in our community.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about Ronin and the chain? Like, I know you mentioned they're awesome, but like, from the outside looking in, now I'm bullish on the chain. I think like it is so, so, so special what you said of like having actually gone through that cycle already. Outside looking in, like there was the hack, there was the FUD, blah, 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 blah. I love your approach to that of like, that's all good feedback, what are they like? What is it like being on the inside building with them? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, so we were previously on Polygon. And I'm not going to spend any time on this talking about why or like anything bad about Polygon, basically. Like I have respect for what they're building. They have some like great biz dev that they've been doing, all of that. But the reason why we want to move to the Ronin chain was one, like distribution was interesting to me. They had actually done the hard work of onboarding millions of users into Web3 gaming. They already had users who liked Web3 gaming. You don't need to explain to these users why Web3 games are cool. They like them already. And that work of onboarding people is actually quite difficult. Like if you work with Web3 gaming companies, or if you work with like Web3 adjacent companies like Coinbase, I think their customer acquisition cost is like $100 per user, something crazy like that. It is expensive. It is hard, and it is a lot of work to get people into an ecosystem. And Ronin already did that. Now, Axie maybe had less DAU right now than its peak, but these users are already into the ecosystem. They clearly want to still play more games now that they've got exposed to Pixels. We're seeing a huge uptick in there as well. And yeah, they just have that distribution layer. I think the long term of the chain to game relationship doesn't really look like a technology partnership. Basically, all scaling solutions to Ethereum should technically be the same. There's maybe slight differences in gas cost, but that doesn't really matter. And I don't, as a builder, care where the technology lies. What that relationship should look like is more like a publisher to game studio, where these chains, like they should really be incentivized to help the games on them with user acquisition. They should be incentivized to help see the games on them win. And there should be a relationship more like that. And yeah, Ronin and the Sky Mavis team, again, perfectly positioned to do that with the users they've already onboarded. Two, again, none of the other chains really have reached scale or have had a game that has scaled in Web3 gaming yet. So there's a whole host of issues you're going to run into when you start to scale Web3 games that these people just don't have experience with yet, which is not bad, and like not to say they're not going to figure this out. But that experience the Ronin team brings is invaluable. Like I cannot explain to you how much they're helping us, how much that mentorship is moving us forward at an even quicker pace. So we don't have to waste weeks or months trying things that they've already tried that hasn't worked. Yeah, it is amazing, and I'm just so happy that we made this change.
Nick, what are your thoughts? Haven't heard from you in a little while.
Yeah, so I don't have too much experience with the Ronin chain. Definitely excited to give it a little bit more of a try. Obviously, between what really put it back on my radar was CyberKong's Genkai drop, because I had been involved in that community for a long time. And so that definitely like my ears perked up, where I had actually what got me into crypto gaming in the first place was Axie Infinity. So I read some like little news article at the bottom of the stock app. I'd just gotten into crypto, and it was like talking about how people were cranking out breeding farms and like making a bunch of money. And I was like, okay, I used to play Viva Pinata. That was like one of my first games on the Xbox. I'm like, I don't know how to run this game. And then the hack happened, and I kind of like I was so junior, I didn't quite understand like what the ramifications were, so I just deleted my account. Like I don't even know how to access. I have like a bunch of Axies. I don't even know how to get them. For some reason, I thought deleting my seed phrase would somehow protect me. Things you learn. So excited to hear like all the building that's been going on Ronin. Super excited. We talked a little bit before we got the recording going. Really excited about this niche of game for Web3. Big Harvest Moon guy. big Stardew Valley. That's like my pretty much most of what I play on the Switch. Great way to like knock out flights. And I think between, it has a couple of things going for it for a Web3 game. You don't have to have some like AAA level graphics for it to be fun and engaging. Like having like cute pixely is totally cool. And like, I don't necessarily want a farming game where like I can see the dirt. Like there's plenty of grass and like plants around outside. It's nice to have this little like universe. And all the items and the like, the pets and the harvesting, like it really fits well into the Web3 niche. So, just excited to see, what you guys are building, and, was scrolling through the website right before we hopped on here, and I'm definitely going to give it a try.
Yeah, a note on that too. I still think so AAA games are great. They're going to come to Web3, and some are going to absolutely crush it. AAA has a very hard time pivoting. So like the AAA games that get it right, they basically have to get it right from the beginning. Obviously they'll be able to do some live ops, but you don't get to experiment with the systems as much. You don't get to experiment with all the other things as well too. So it's a bigger bet that you're making as a game studio if you're releasing a AAA game in Web3, which is great, and I'm super excited to see them come on. And yeah, I'm welcoming them. But for us, what we really are focusing on is like the systems. We want to iterate on the systems. We want to make sure that the game loops are good, and the graphics are, really not the thing that matters for that in our mindset, at least. The pixel art, like we're trying to make it look as great as possible, and it's a cute style, right? But for us, it's like, can we create the structures, can we create the game loops, and create the systems and all the other stuff on top of that as well too? Like building a game in Web3 is only half the work. And it's only half the problem set. There is a whole other problem set around the incentive systems, the bot detection prevention systems, the growth, all of that kind of stuff that is equally as interesting to us. And we think have actually been kind of under indexed on over the last 2 years by a lot of people. The games have to be good. Everybody agrees about that in Web3, but also there's another part of the equation there too that you can't forget about.
100%. 100%. Well, really appreciate you doing a bit of a deep dive there. Want to kind of just give you the floor to maybe share whatever else you want to share about Pixels, and then I do want to kind of move on. We have a couple of other topics in our agenda, and really excited to get your opinion on a lot of these too. So maybe you could just kind of share like what your vision is for what the project is going to look like, and any other last thoughts that you think like we and citizens, and of course the meat bags who want to listen, can really take as a as something to really take away from this about Pixels and what you guys are building.
Yeah, totally. We have a lot of cool things coming up. One of the most exciting things is we have an upcoming TGE. That's obviously going to be a huge event. And yeah, we're making sure that we're as ready as possible for that. It'll be called the Pixel token. Basically, it's going to be our hard currency that'll work in the game. And yeah, we have a ton of product that's going to be ready to use it as well too. We're doing some really interesting new product things. They'll be integrating that token, and like we're running a few experiments. Super excited about it. Basically, the next like 3 big things that we're working on are, one, this new feature called Realms. We already have this ready to release. We're just kind of figuring out when the right time to release it is. It's basically going to be sandbox style gameplay on top of our engine, where users are going to be able to create their own custom virtual spaces, really similar to our old previous product. They'll be able to upload their own tile sets, their own custom art, and make like a separate game outside of Pixels, essentially. First version of that ready to go. We're really excited to release that. Second thing that we're working on is we're going to start integrating guilds very tightly into Pixels. And we're actually going to be working on some like social-fi features inside of Pixels. We're aiming to release that in maybe December, which is not even that far away. It's crazy. But essentially how it's going to work is kind of be like a new reincarnation of Friend Tech, except built around guilds and then tightly integrated into the Pixels game. You'll be able to join a guild using our Pixel token. We might do it with Barry too. We're kind of debating on that. But yeah, you'll join them on a bonding curve. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Very excited for that. And then the third thing that we're working on is what we call Chapter 2. It's basically a rework of core game systems, and it's actually going to tightly integrate guilds as well. We're going to change up how resources are generated inside of Pixels. We're going to tie it to our land and NFT a lot more tightly. That way, resource generation isn't per player anymore. It's kind of capped on the global supply each day. And then we're going to have guilds have to work together to earn these resources. And then we're also introducing in Chapter 2, kind of like this economic PvP, where guilds will have to work together, compete against each other for even more rare resources, and basically competing for this like new type of land that we're releasing. So yeah, tons of interesting stuff that we're up to and going to release. We're going to do it really quickly too. So follow along, and yeah, don't miss out on some of this stuff.
100%. I know the people that are listening, 3 years from now are going to feel super FOMO that they missed out on this. So, go back and check in, and, we'll be waiting for you there. But yeah, would love to maybe get you back on post all of these things and talk about like lessons learned, and like, okay, this is what we thought happened. This is what actually happened. And like, maybe dig some insight out of there. So I think that would be a lot of fun. Hogshead, Cryptithius, any other last questions just about Pixels, and then let's take it to the other. Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about the guilds aspect. So my son and I, one of my sons actually, we play Brawl Stars together. It's like kind of our morning routine, and I don't really play it unless he's there. And it's sort of like that team aspect. Guilds are amazing. But I also wanted to mention, like, I think at some point, maybe this is 3 years in the future, whenever it is, I think Axie is going to be like the Mario. Is it the Pong? I mean, I think we need to give them a little more credit than a lot of people do for what they did. I too have Axies. I don't use them anymore, but I ended up just farming Ronin for a while, and it's great. And I love the Ronin chain. I'm a huge fan of it. It's very easy to use, very quick, very cheap. But I think everybody in general in crypto, I think we need to give them a little more credit than we do. They've done a lot, and I'm glad to have them on our team as a Web3 company, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think Axie does deserve a little bit more love. I mean, it's sort of like a human thing, certainly a Western thing. We love to tear down our heroes. We love them. We love tearing them down more than I think we even love building them up. And they were a trailblazer. I mean, I'm always going to have a special place in my heart for Axie, or I might not be sitting here talking to you guys. And the whole sort of ripples that came off of Axie is in some ways our entire space. And just one last comment on, I think it's a really important note that you said there about tying the resources to the land and not having a player, additional player linked resource generation, because you end up with those opposing forces. You want to blow up the player base, but you don't want to overinflate your economy. And I'm sure, the teams over at Ronin and the teams over at Axie have some good tips around that. Cause that's the thing about going first. Like, you learn that stuff the hard way, and, it's easy to play Monday night quarterback, but it's certainly good to have those trailblazers, in your corner advising.
Yeah, 100%. Axie ecosystem, still think it's super slept on. They made so many changes over the last year and a half that like the greater Web3 space hadn't really noticed. But the stuff they're doing there just around Axie, not even Ronin, is really, really interesting, especially when it comes to IP. There's so many like secondary and community made Axie games coming out now. I think it's fascinating.
Okay, hold on. We can't move on yet. Okay. This derivative game making situation that I'm hearing about, that is extremely bullish, and I'm very curious about this, right? What that immediately reminds me of is if we jump back to like the Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne days, the game was fun, right? But the custom mini games on the side, that was that was where it was at, right? Like you had Hero Line Wars, Lycian, Winter Mall Wars, like you had all these different things that were like the derivatives. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that is actually where the idea of Dota, which then became the MOBA craze, which then spawned League of Legends and Dota, came from, was those mini games there. So like the fact that that's coming, whoa, watch out. That's going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about like what actually that means and what's going to be there? Or is that kind of like hidden secret stuff?
Yeah, so everything you see in Pixels, for us at least right now, we've built with a set of no code or low code tooling that we have proprietarily built, basically. Every change that we can make in the game, we can update production live in real time. We can add new quests in the game without writing any new code. And that's the kind of stuff that we're about to flip back to our users users, basically. The question is like, how technical do we make it giving to our users, and like how user friendly do we make it? What we've actually noticed in Web3 is like the user base is actually pretty technical and they can do a lot of stuff without any help. So we're actually just probably leaning to give it more sandbox style. But yeah, first iteration of us doing that is coming out basically whenever we want to release it. If we just want like a bit more like fuel on the fire.
That is very exciting. I can't wait to see that. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. Oh, okay, guys. Again, interrupt me if you guys want to keep going on this, but if not, I think we have some big news.
I just wanted to mention one thing.
Go for it.
You're talking about the mini games, and I will tell you. So, like my kids and I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old. So this is like the perfect sort of what's into gaming. They play Fortnite a lot, and the creative games that we play, I think, are more fun than Battle Royale and all the normal stuff we play. I mean, they have Gatorade versus Prime. They have all these cool things that are created by the community, and those games are amazing. And those are the ones that they talk about with their friends, like, oh, we did that. And I think that's really important to have that aspect, to have the base, like you're talking about, but then be able to iterate on it and have someone's idea that you may not have even thought of. And all of a sudden, boom, this amazing thing hits. And, if you could somehow monetize that and say, hey, this person has created this awesome game. 50,000 of our 100,000 users use it every day. We need to give them more incentive to keep doing that. And that's what I think really is the gem here. And that's awesome.
But yeah.
100%. Okay, guys. Now to move on. I want to talk a little bit about a very well-known Web 2 company that has been coming in hot to Web 3, which is Disney. Now, we obviously all know Disney, but maybe some things to point out is that these are some of the leaders of IP in the world. They have some of the strongest IP on the planet. They've dabbled in video games. They've dabbled in TV shows. They've dabbled in movies. They've dabbled in cartoons and sketches and animation, all of the things, right? So the fact that they are coming in and making a splash and taking on the world of Web3 and specifically coming in to tackle NFTs, I think, one, that's extremely powerful validation, like we need it anymore, but, more helps. So they're coming in. They went for NFTs. What are our thoughts on here?
I mean, I'm personally excited about it. Yeah, especially if it starts to open up the realm of IP interoperability. I'm curious to see how they're going to handle that. What we do in Pixels is we've worked with over 85 NFT collections to put them in our game as avatars. And there's possibility for that when larger Web 2 companies come in and start to put their IP on chain. Are we allowed to start to use some of these Web 2 IP in our game for interoperability? Is that kind of their plan around it? You have to purchase that interoperable asset from Disney, but then Disney allows other people to use it in certain ways. Yeah, really curious to see what they come around with, like, their IP rights and all of that as well too, but potentially opens up a ton of very interesting doors for Web3 games.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hope they go down that route because, then they, obviously make their money on the royalties. The more big players that get into this space, the happier I am. In some ways, it loses a little bit of its shine, when the big dogs come in. It's not quite the bleeding edge tech, but I think that's a little sacrifice compared to the pros. You just mentioned some great ones. The other one is Disney's got a bunch of sharks. They've got a bunch of high paid lawyers that will go to the mat if Disney puts enough money into it on behalf of NFTs. Now, if it's too early on, they could cut bait and run because, you got to kind of pick your battles. But the more big dogs that come into this space, as we've sort of seen with crypto, and I saw this in the cannabis space, which, I used to focus on in my early days. And like 2 or 3 years ago, you really watched a tipping point where there was enough money in cannabis that they got to throw their weight around, and people weren't really talking about messing with state regulations. Federal's now sort of like an if, not, not an if, but a when. And I think you could see a very similar trend come to, it's interesting that they're leaning into the NFT space. They're not talking about, slinging Mickey coin. So, I think there's a lot of tells there that I'm certainly excited about.
Yeah, pure
Slinging Mickey
speculation
coin.
too. Pure speculation too, but Roblox has been a lot more friendly with the idea of NFTs as well. So that potentially is something there.
100%. Hogshead, can we get a chime in on this legal
Yeah.
stuff?
So this brings up two really important cases: the Hermes versus Rothschild. I don't know if you remember the Meta Birkins. So I'm sure you've heard of the Birkin bags. They're Hermes, right? So they create these amazing bags. There's a guy named Rothschild. I forgot his real name, but he was creating what's called Meta Birkins. And Hermes said, you know what? And everyone honestly thought that Rothschild, these Meta Birkins, were actually created by Hermes. It had nothing to do with it. It was just somebody who created an NFT that looked like a Birkin bag, and they were selling for 20, 30, maybe $50,000. This is at the height of around 2021. So that case, and then the second case I think is really important, is Yuga Labs versus Ryder Rips. I don't know if you remember Ryder Rips. So Ryder Rips created the exact same Bored Apes. So Bored Ape 1 was the same color as Ryder Rip's Bored Ape 1. He was using the trademarks of obviously Yuga Labs. Yuga Labs sued, Hermes sued, and there's some important cases that states that, number one, there's no requirement that goods have to be tangible, right? So now people are thinking, okay, so maybe we can have trademark protections on our copyrights and our trademarks in NFT world, which means, so your trademark, think about it as like your brand, right? So like Coca-Cola, Polo, your copyright's going to be the actual drawings of your, or your written words, right? All those things that you would think of to protect. So there's sort of two aspects to it. Both of these cases, we're talking about trademarks, which to me is more important in this aspect. Now, Ryder Rips has to take all of his smart contracts and give them to Yuga Labs. Yuga Labs has crushed him. He won. They've won. Ryder Rips is no more. So the interesting thing is that those were not filed intellectual property. Nothing was registered with the United States trademark and copyright. None of those were, which is fantastic. Well, Hermes was, but this was not for the Yuga Labs case. So to me, I think Disney sees these things and says, okay, their lawyers are on top of this, saying you have both copyright and trademark protections now. They are easily going to be recognized in the digital space. So now you can go out and you can sell, like you're talking about. You can use your wonderful lawyers and your contracts to say, hey, let's test the waters here. Let's bring out the NFTs. We're going to have protection, and if we need to, we're going to be like Godzilla's lawyers, and we'll go after him, and we're going to win. And I think that those two cases are really, really important, and I think sort of changed the large Fortune 500 type companies to say, you know what, let's look at this, because they went and they won, and that's important.
Now, just a quick clarifying question. When you said Godzilla lawyers, do you mean the lawyers of Godzilla, or like the Godzilla of lawyers? They just brought in the absolute goat of lawyers to do this.
So I think as far as copyright goes, the Godzilla lawyers who actually work for Godzilla are the Godzilla lawyers. They are amazing. They are very, very shark-like. They attack any sort of, unauthorized use of their trademarks, and they win. And that's one of the keys, is you have to go out. If you have a trademark, you have to protect it. You have to, file the lawsuits that you need to, and they are amazing at it. So just, research the trademark lawyers for Godzilla. They're awesome.
I love it. I think this also paves the way for like the big, kind of like you were saying, like the bigger groups, the bigger companies to just come in knowing that there is some legal precedent, and that the first couple of frontier explorers have already now traversed through the legal system, and they have some sort of history to back their ideas on. Because I mean, there's a lot of things where I think like they're just not going to do it unless they have like some semblance of an idea of what's going to happen. Luke, have you guys encountered anything, in the legal realm where you're like, man, this stuff's crazy. Like we never expected this, or like, anything on that front where maybe you could have a little bit of alpha for founders who are going through this too?
Yeah, I mean, most Web3 founders are generally like pretty open to the idea of interoperability. That's what we've been experimenting with a lot. And then, yeah, we've been extremely cautious around, Web2 companies for that reason. But even some of the larger Web3 companies, like Yuga Labs, we've been careful as we talk to them. Like we want like permission. We want to like actually be working with them rather than just like, using their assets inside of our game, because technically it's on chain, right? Like if we wanted to do interoperability with anything on chain, like we could do it and do our own interpretation, but it's better to ask for permission in certain use cases. So yeah, most Web3 founders are pretty forward with it. But yeah, it's always just best to be cautious is what we've learned.
100%. So you actually mentioned something earlier that was definitely on the list of topics. Before we move to that, anybody have any last thoughts on the Disney coming in hot topic? I think it's bullish. I think we can all agree. Now, we may look back on this in a year and say, damn, they came in and ate our lunch and like they just kicked our asses when it comes to IP. Who knows? But definitely a good sign that there's still a lot of interest, still a lot of big companies coming in. It's almost undeniable at this point.
No, only last comment I'll throw on here is stoked to have you in here, Jared. It's great to, get a lawyer's perspective on these sort of issues. There's legal issues come up a lot in crypto and NFTs for obvious reasons. And there's a lot of like, I think this is like, this or that from like people who, are pre law. Maybe they had a mock trial in high school, myself included.
Me too. Yeah.
I speculate with the best of them. But yeah, great, great to have you on here. Great to have that perspective.
Cool, man. Yeah, and I'll try to make it not too boring. We don't have to go through the Rogers test of whether the trademark is artistically relevant and whether that's explicitly misleading. All that is for like the legal courtroom. That's BS. Like I like try to make it easy and simple. It's like, ask permission. That's good advice. Really good advice.
Rock on. Okay, so Luke, you mentioned that Roblox CEO was commenting on NFTs. I actually, from what I was reading, thought that he fully committed to the future of Roblox being involved with NFTs in some way, shape, or form. This to me is huge. Like we see Roblox, last time I checked, $26 billion market cap company. As of the recording of this, that's bigger than all of the crypto gaming coins on CoinMarketCap in their gaming section, which is at 12 or 15 billion in totality, right? So this one company is bigger than all of the companies, right? Just to tee that up. Okay, so that's awesome. What are we thinking as far as what that would and could look like? And what do we think the implications of something like that are to our space?
Yeah, so from a gaming perspective, what that potentially unlocks for them is interoperability with externally released IP. So like if they were to form a partnership with Disney, that means Disney launches an NFT. That NFT works inside of Roblox through all the Roblox experiences, which is potentially extremely interesting. Also means potentially like outside marketplaces for anything that they release internally as well, or for their own developers as well too. So any of like the games made inside of Roblox, it's potentially new monetization for them. It's potentially a way for Roblox to take a cut as well on secondary trading. Really, really interesting.
Nick, what are we thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about Roblox, I'll be honest, besides the fact that they're huge and that they're very popular. I think it's exciting for the space. Any sort of validation on the NFT side, I'm all about. Lifelong gamer, personally all about it. I wish, I could have NFTs of my like starting Charmander and like Charizard from my original red version I got when I was 6. So, the more people coming into the space, I'm all about it.
My hot take is I think everybody in Web3 really needs to take a look at what Roblox is doing and kind of understand it. It's essentially kind of already Web3 in a way. It has the ethos for sure, especially with their like creator program. It's the closest thing to a metaverse right now as well too. Like, other side and what they're doing is interesting. They'll maybe be like even more Web3 leaning than Roblox, obviously, but they already have the technology that other side kind of wants to be building when it comes to building out experiences, virtual spaces, mini games. They have creator programs. It's so insane. One area where Roblox is, maybe not as Web3 is like the amount of cut they take through all of their share with creators and players in the game. But they've even started allowing players to exit their Robux into actual fiat money now, which is pretty darn close to Web3 as is.
wow, that is a huge step forward. The fact that they're open to that, I mean, that builds an economy right there. Like when you have that backwards and forwards ability to go like that, that creates the economy. Also, one thing I should note, because I've studied Roblox a little bit, just from like trying to stay caught up on metaverse and gaming and all that kind of stuff. One of the things that's very interesting about them is that they deploy an incredible amount of their revenue, like a huge percentage of their revenue towards R&D, research and development. And what's amazing about that is they're paying out all these creators and they're reinvesting so much of this cash into research and development. Like they're setting themselves up to be pioneers of this like gaming world building space for many, many years to come. And they have a huge platform. And like you talk to some of these creators and like some of them are building their careers making games and experiences on Roblox. So that's going to trickle because some of them are going to start creating content around that. They're going to be the YouTubers of that world, and that's going to trickle in. And then kids are going to grow up thinking, instead of like wanting to be a YouTuber or wanting to be a this or a that, they're going to want to be like a Roblox game builder. And that will create like generations of people that are all trying to make it on this platform. Like that's exactly what I think Web3 is trying to build. Like that's absolutely what we're trying to do with a lot of the games that we're building in this industry. So I think we have a lot to learn from them. And I think it's really interesting how much they put towards their R&D. I think it's like, don't quote me on this, but like, double digits percentage of their revenue that they like hard commit to that R&D. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you guys need to watch Laserbeam spend, thousands of dollars in Roblox and destroy little kids because he becomes like the god mode. It's probably some of the funniest YouTube I've ever seen. But, Roblox has that huge base of really creative, community members that are building out. I mean, you're exactly right. You nailed it. Like, this is just like Web3 now. And it's only going to get better. I would imagine they create their own chain. And I'm like you, Ben. I think that they're going all in is kind of my understanding. And more power to them. I think they're going to be a great ally with this because they have the concept down and it's fun. That's the main thing.
100%. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, when you were saying that, 90% of it got me hyped up, and then one sentence kind of made my stomach drop, which is that they're just going right from the what's the currency? Roblox?
Robux.
Robux. So that they're going right from Robux to fiat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, clearly, they're interested in the Web3 if they're talking about putting digital assets, putting those on the blockchain. How many companies are going to just take V-Bucks, the Call of Duty currency, gold and WoW, and just have a fiat or, central bank digital currency like off ramp? It sort of puts a little bit of impetus on the games to become popular enough where gamers go, yeah, we don't want that. We want to actually be able to like trade these in between, ourselves. But, the second you said it, I was like, oh man, yeah, there's going to be some big companies that go that route and maybe not even poorly intentioned. Just being like, oh, we know how to do this. We can get this dialed. This could be a good user experience. You can kind of see how a company would pitch it. We don't have to worry about gas. So it does put a little bit of a like TikTok, like you don't want to get left behind.
Until these companies then realize that they can build a conversion or an exchange feature, and they can, of course, have that off ramp, or they could help their people get access to all the other currencies on the planet, and they could probably take some transaction fees there, and then they probably open that up and go, legally if that works for them, of course. But like they're probably going to open that up to collect those little transaction fees that aren't so little. That's what I expect to happen there. Is like, why would they not? Like, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. The incentives there for them to maximize their revenues. That could be a really big one for them.
Yeah, the interesting question too is like, okay, when is this going to happen compared to the speed of Web3 native games? and platforms getting built as well too. Are the Web3 games going to be as developed as a Roblox by the time that they get to decide to do this, or are we just guinea pigs waiting for Roblox to come in and crush us? Yeah, it's a very interesting thought.
Well, what do you think? What do you think the outcome there is?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what they're doing is they're waiting for companies like us to actually figure this out, right? Because there still is a lot of stuff to figure out. And we have an advantage building the space right now to solve some of the issues that they probably don't have time to iterate or think about right now as well. So, and also there's a big thing to talk about when it comes to splits as well. Roblox, they take 30 to 40% of earnings and splits from that. It's very uncompetitive compared to the Web3 ethos where it's normally 2 to 5. So there's advantages with Web3 games building right now as well in that area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you see these games that are building now, like you guys, and there's a lot of great ones out there. Do you kind of see these bigger Web2 players waiting for you guys to figure this part out and then coming in with their mergers and acquisitions arms and then just kind of snapping up a bunch of these startups? Or do you think they're going to try to convert their existing stuff into Web3? Or do you think they're just going to plant 50 seeds of 50 potential games or invest in a couple? Or how are they going to make that jump into it from your perspective as a founder?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised when stuff starts to develop more if there wasn't an M&A spree inside of Web3. But then, and yeah, the question is are these Web3 companies going to want to be doing it? I mean, you can already see Web3 market caps getting sufficiently big where, it's interesting enough for the teams to not want to do that as well.
I think one interesting way the mergers and acquisitions can go down, and I'd never really thought about this before, is you see hostile takeovers all the time. You buy 51% of the stock, you own the company. I think that's right. If I'm wrong on that, but what if they do that with the blockchain and they're like, hey, we've got enough of, a Web3 games native chain. We've got enough to, throw our weight around, whether that be from a threat standpoint, being like, hey, we could turn this off if we really wanted to, or if it actually has a decentralized voting mechanism going in and getting control. Because, people talk about that problem in the big top 10 coins, and that's a whole lot bigger, than a lot of these gaming chains. And it could provide an interesting opportunity for, whether a nefarious or well-engaged company to effectively take control while keeping arm's length.
Jared, maybe you can weigh in on this and give us the legal side of how companies, the proxies and how they can take control and then how that could work. Yeah.
So I think the key to that is whether you have a DAO or it's an LLC or whatever that is to really, really have a smart operating agreement and really, really delve into the voting mechanisms, especially with a DAO where, it's sort of based on, the easy selling and buying of the voting shares, which is with tokens, right? I mean, that happens on a daily basis for most tokens. So you want to make sure that you have, almost like a poison pill, the way I would call it in the documents that say, one person or one entity, right? And again, there's going to be a legal way around that. Cannot have too much control. For certain things, you want to have, what I would call a unanimous vote, right? For really important things, like you're talking about, Nick, like turning off the chain, moving to an entirely different chain, all those types of things, whether it's a game, whether it's actually the chain itself. So you want to have certain protections in there. And again, going back to it, if it's truly, truly decentralized, that, you need to, I still think you need to have that founder after the TGE event, hold on to some of those tokens and have some of those votes be unanimous. That way it'll never happen as long as you have that, that person, and that person now needs to say, it's not just me. So they need to have wills. They need to say, okay, what happens in case I die? We need to make sure that there's a mechanism for this living on past me. So all those things need to be thought about When you're starting it and when you're building your DAO documents, it's so important to think about all those different aspects of what could happen. What if this? And Nick, you bring up a great point. Like, what if some huge company or 5 or 6 companies get together and say, hey, let's buy, I don't know, 50% of the Bitcoin out there, right? It's doable, right? I mean, there's more money than Bitcoin money. That's a potential. So those are all things that we need to think about when we're setting up our documents and setting up the sort of whole model of how it's going to work and how it's going to flow. It's just really important to think about ahead of time. And Nick, you brought up great points on that. I think that's something to think about, and make sure you look into that and think about it and talk to somebody about it.
Rock on. Well, yeah, guard your governance tokens well, friends.
Mm-hmm.
make sure you think that one through. Okay, guys, we are approaching the time here. I do want to cover 2 topics really quickly. Let's bundle them, give our thoughts, and then we'll be piecing out here for the week. 2 big things that I think are just freaking awesome and super bullish. One is that according to Coinbase, 52 million Americans now own crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. That's a lot of Americans. Rock on, America, first of all. But also, that's a lot of freaking people. Like, that is starting to approach mainstream adoption. Hell yeah. A second bullish point is that Ubisoft and IMX have declared a partnership. Now, I'm not super clear on exactly what the fine details of that is going to be, but like, this is a huge step forward that, one, Ubisoft, although getting smacked down multiple times before, is coming back again and again and again to make this thing work. And they're partnering with IMX, which we all know, being in the gaming sector, is like deep tech in the gaming world. So these 2 things seem incredibly bullish. Let's get some thoughts on this, and we'll end this week on a bullish note. Don't everybody talk at once, though.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like the space turning around, it's interesting because like I think whatever's happening in like external markets is a bit independent of all of this stuff going on, where people in gaming especially understand that there needs to be new methods of user acquisition. What a lot of people haven't seen on the sidelines, or if you're not really into gaming, is that most big games companies actually aren't doing that well right now. Changes to user acquisition, especially with ATT, some of Apple's changes have really affected game economics, and they're all looking for new, interesting ways to acquire new users. And the economics of user acquisition in Web3 have been extremely promising with that. And I think a lot of these gaming companies want to be moving into Web3 for that reason, not anything to do with macro, nothing to do with the sentiment. It's like, oh, this is actually new technology that actually makes our gaming companies, more profitable, better economics, all of that side of things. So yeah, it's been really, really cool to see that. And every single big gaming company is looking at this. They were 2 years ago. They're much more serious about it now, from my understanding as well. I think Sega announced some stuff too, in addition to Ubisoft. There's some cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, I'll hop in. In regard to I believe you said 1/7 or something like that of the United States being in crypto, huge, absolutely huge. Also, you're starting to see a lot of those people who might just be silent holders, or sort of like peace, being like, I'm not taking a 90% loss. This is already not worth a ton of money. I'm just going to come back when things are bullish. Those people are starting to wake up a little bit, and those people bring drag in the way of their friends and their family. I had a couple buddies who are in Neo Tokyo hit me up and being like, oh dude, could you hop on a call? I feel like I got to get caught up. And I'm like, okay, that's a little something. On the Ubisoft front, huge Assassin's Creed fan, played all of them, even the ones that I hated, quite frankly. Great to see Ubisoft like leaning so hard into this space. They already got, beat up, as you mentioned, on their collectibles. But it's cool to see that they're innovating, because, they were almost known for being stagnant. I'd like to see on the like sort of the leadership structure, if they got some young blood in there who's really interested in some of these cutting edge spaces, because you just saw Assassin's Creed Nexus drop, which is their VR, partnered with Meta. They're pushing it really, really hard. I'm 100% going to play that, and just excited to see what they do in Web3. My head automatically goes to Assassin's Creed. So, if I can have a little Ezio Auditore like PFP, I don't know. I don't know if I'd cheat on my citizen, but I'd be tempted.
Hogshead, what you got?
I think that Ubisoft, I'm really proud of them for doing this, because they came out with Quartz, which I think it didn't go over well. That, and I think that feedback from the Web3 community really kind of gave them an idea to, hey, let's get them going to IMX. I mean, that's really kind of bold to go to Immutable, right? You would think they would go to some other chain, but to me, that means that they're really, really gonna, dig deep. They listened to the comments before and they said, look, maybe we screwed that up. This is not like a regular Assassin's Creed. This is not like our regular customers. They're different. They want different things. They're talking about decentralization. Maybe they didn't even know what that was at the time. And I think that they took that, and IMX is they're gonna blow it up. They're gonna kill it. Like, they're gonna say, look, you do this with your IP and with your game devs, the world's your oyster, right? I mean, honestly, that would be some amazing games, and I'm really, really looking forward to that. And as far as the Coinbase, the 52 million, that makes perfect sense. I mean, all my friends, like you, Nick, were calling me the other day. They're like, should I sell now? I'm like, no, you're good. Like, the ones that were like a year ago that were like, hey, man, I bought this. I'm like, cool, and now they're like, should I sell it? I'm like, probably not yet. You're good. Just like hold it. Like, don't trade it. Don't do anything. You'll be fine. I'll tell you what to do when it's time. But they're back. They're coming back. They're talking about it. I went to dinner with some really, really old lawyers the other day, and crypto and AI came up, and we had a long conversation about it. Nobody knew what it was, but it was like they had heard about it. So I kind of had like a little discussion with some 70-year-old lawyers about it, and they were interested. So look, it's the real thing. It's coming. We're so early, and I'm just pumped to be part of the whole thing. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah. Well, Luke, I want to thank you for coming and joining us here as a guest. Again, welcome. Very, very very warm welcome to you of joining the Citadel, and excited really to see where Pixels go, and where you go as an entrepreneur. I mean, you're obviously, you're one of us now, so we got your back, and we're definitely rooting for you. For those that are kind of sitting on the sidelines trying to figure out if Neotopia is the place for you, I'd say if you're awesome like Luke, then yes, it is. But not that many people are that awesome, so it might be tough to match that.
Well, yeah, no, thanks so much again for having me. Really, really appreciate it. And this was super fun.
Hell yeah. Luke, thank you so much. Cryptotheus, Hogshead, any last words, guys?
Just thanks, man. I appreciate all you guys, and I love Neo Tokyo. And man, Luke, I'm really pumped to have you in here. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. Hogshead, super great having you on here. Luke, was great having you on here. Learned a bunch. Really enjoy these conversations. Excited to see where Pixels goes, and this was a nice sort of nightcap on a very fun day. This is Friday, so any citizens, what happened today, and lots of exciting stuff coming out of the Citadel. So yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Ben, always for hosting. Yeah, way to keep us on track and through the topics. That was great.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much, and everybody, we will see you on the next episode. Take care. Tokyo.